Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be covering wage reporting, who it's applicable to, how often should you be doing it, and how you should be providing your wages. Please make sure to watch the video in its entirety so you don't miss a detail that might pertain to you, because it could help you to avoid an overpayment and paying money back to Social Security. So jumping right into it, who needs to report wages? So from the Social Security side of things, anyone receiving a reduced benefit because of their age, so whether it's retirement benefits under their own record, spouse benefits under their spouse's record, survivor's benefits, anytime that you're receiving any one of those things and you're under your full retirement age and you are working, you are obligated to report your work to the Social Security Administration. Typically, they want some sort of estimate up front at the beginning of the year. That way, if you go over the restricted amount, there's time for them to withhold your benefits and you're not overpaid. If you run into a situation where, let's say that you went back to work halfway through the year, you neglected to tell Social Security, you're over the restricted limit, and then maybe we're in the fourth quarter, like October, November timeframe, and you say, hey, by the way, I made $25,000 this year. There's not enough time left in the calendar year for Social Security to withhold your benefits. That's when you're overpaid, and then you'll have to make a payment arrangement to pay that money back. Okay, so to avoid doing that, just always remember that if you're receiving a benefit that's reduced because you're under your full retirement age, you must report your wages to Social Security in a timely manner and give them a proper estimate. In regards to Social Security benefits, it's always better to assume that you're going to make a little more than you are. That way, if, as an example, let's say that you started working and you estimated your wages to be about $20,000, or well, the limit now is $21,000. So let's say $25,000. And then you told them you were going to make $26,000, which is what I would recommend, probably about $1,000 more, right? So $26,000 minus, believe it's $21,240 is a restriction this year. Let's assume that you're 63. So for every $2 you go over the restricted amount, they withhold one from your benefit. So you take the $26,000 estimate, which is about $1,000 over what you think you're going to make, subtract the restricted amount, which is $21,240. And the difference is $47.60. Out of that $47.60, you're going to divide it by 2, and that's because every $2 you go over, they only count 1. So you would be, they would either have to withhold $2,380 from you up front, or if you neglected to tell them timely and there wasn't enough time left in the year to withhold benefits, now you're for sure going to be overpaid, and you would have to make a payment arrangement. So what that would look like is, as long as you're eligible for a Social Security check, you would agree to a certain amount of money that comes out of that check that would go towards your overpayment. It's important to keep in mind, and there's a lot of confusion on this, if you continue your work and you're not due a payment, then there's no check to have your payment arrangement applied to. So if you're continuing to make $26,000, so let's say, as an example, you started halfway through the year. So in June, you started making $26,000. You waited until November to say, hey, I estimate I'm going to make $26,000 for the year. There's not enough time to withhold any checks, so you're for sure overpaid. Then your work continues into next year. So Social Security, when they take your updated estimate for the current calendar year, they should also be asking you, what do you think you're going to make next year if your work continues? So if you tell them, and that's how it should properly be done. So if you tell them, hey, I plan on continuing to make another $26,000 for the year, assuming, I want to say the national average for a Social Security check, at least last year, sometime around October, was $1,680, right? So $26,000 minus $21,240, assuming that the restricted amount is the same, divide by 2, because it's 2 for 1. This means $23.80 has to be withheld. If, let's say that your check was roughly $16.80, you would take $23.80 divided by $16.80, It will come out to 1.4. Social Security is going to round up. So that means that if you were to continue your work in the new year, and the restricted amount was the same, and your work was still estimated at $26,000, that means that they're going to round up the first 2 checks of the year you are not due. So you would not get paid in January and February, and then in March would be your first payment based off of a $26,000 estimate. And then March would also be the first month that they are going to withhold a portion of your benefits if you made a payment arrangement for that overpayment. So in any month where you're not due a payment, that means that your payment arrangement is not being paid either. That also means that your Medicare is not being paid either. So for those 2 months, if you're paying the $164.90 for Medicare, and then maybe you have an Advantage plan and a drug plan, just know whatever months that your check is suspended because of your work and you're not paid, that means your payment arrangement's not paid, and any of your other deductibles like your Part B premium, your Part D premium, if you have an Advantage plan, whatever the case may be, that's not getting paid either because you are not due that Social Security payment, okay? So when you do go to report your wages and let them know what it's going to be, make sure you keep your ticket or you write down your ticket number. If you're visiting the local office, if you're calling someone over the phone, make sure to write down the time, the date, the name of the representative, and what their position was. So whether they're a claims representative, this would be somebody who actually takes retirement, disability, or survivor's claims. Whether it was a customer service representative where they're supposed to handle a lot of the post-entitlement issues, meaning after your benefits have started, that would realistically be the person that's supposed to update your wages as you're reporting them. So you'll want to get the name of the representative that you're speaking to so that you can document it. If there's any issues moving forward, maybe the input that they made didn't go through or something happened where there's an error and maybe you're continuing to be overpaid. You want to know who you spoke to. So if you have to maybe appeal something or request a partial waiver for whatever the case may be, you have that information, okay? And I will tell you with 100% certainty that does happen. The overwhelming majority of employees who make inputs really don't go back to verify that input processed the correct way. So sometimes there's systems limitations where it doesn't go through or somebody does a typo. It happens all the time. A percentage of that you can chalk up to human error, but again, it's just that level of accountability and unfortunately that stereotypical government employee where it's, all right, on to the next one. All right. So in pertaining to those types of benefits, again, retirement benefits, spouses benefits, survivors benefits, under your full retirement age, when there's work involved, always make sure that you report that work. Otherwise, you're looking at a potential overpayment issue, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. As far as Social Security Disability, or SSDI, so your wages are tracked a bit differently, or I should say SSDI or any other type of Social Security disability insurance benefit. So this could be Social Security disability, this could be disabled widows benefits, this could be childhood disability benefits if you're found to be disabled before the age of 22 and you're drawing benefits off of a parent's record, or a child in care benefit. So like if you're a mother, kind of going back to the first example with retirement benefits too, I neglected to say that. So if you're a parent and you have a child that's under the age of 16 and you're being paid because of maybe a spouse's disability or they have passed away and your kids are receiving survivor's benefits, you can get paid for having a child in care under the age of 16. So if you were to go to work, again, you would still need to report those wages just like retirement or survivors or spouse's benefits. But sticking with disability, again, disability, disabled widows benefits, childhood disability benefits, any sort of disability benefit that falls under the Social Security program or Social Security disability insurance, the way that those wages are tracked are a bit more thorough, a bit more in-depth. You should be reporting those wages every month. As soon as the pay period ends and you have that last pay stub for the previous month, you want to go ahead and turn those in. The way that you would, the various ways that you would turn those in is, I would say the very best way to do it, if you can, and it's unfortunately requires the most hassle, is to turn them in person. So you'll go to the local office, you'll put your information in the kiosk, it will give you a ticket, you'll get called to a window, and then you'll provide your stubs. When you provide your stubs, if at all possible, keep your ticket or ask for if they want to take your ticket, ask for a copy of it for your records. And then you'll want to make sure that whoever you speak with at that window, that they document in the kiosk system, which is called Viper, VIPR. You'll want to make sure to tell them, I want you to note that I dropped off X amount of stubs from whatever month to whatever month, so that's documented. Also, you want to ask them for a receipt. So the way that you ask them for a receipt is the customer service representative or the claims representative, whoever you end up speaking to, should go into a program that they have called eWork. And this is where somebody who's receiving any sort of disability benefits, this is where your wages get stored so that when you have a work review, all the information is in there. When you provide a pay stub to Social Security, whether it's one pay stub or 1 month of pay stubs or one pay period of pay stubs or a year's worth of pay stubs, every single stub that you provide, you should be getting a receipt for that. So if you provide let's say one pay period, you should get a receipt saying, thank you for providing us your wage information for the pay period starting, whatever date it might be, the pay period ending, whatever pay period might be, and then it will say, this is what your gross wages were for this pay period. So if you do that for one pay period or you do it for 6 months worth of pay stubs, which again you shouldn't be doing, you should be reporting every month, but let's say maybe a month or two went by and then you reported it, your receipt should account for every single pay period pay stub that you provided them. And if they don't want to give you the receipt, then ask for a supervisor. Say, no, I need a receipt so that I know in my record that I gave you these stubs in a timely manner. Because if Social Security waits 3 or 4 months to do their review, and then if they find out that you were over the limit, now you have an opportunity to argue for, let's say, a partial waiver, right? Where you say, okay, I might have been overpaid because I was slow to report whatever month's wages, but once you had them, you still waited so many months after the fact to process this review, and you might have a greater, overpayment the longer that they wait. Or God forbid you end up in a situation where your benefits were supposed to be terminated and they weren't done so timely. So there's instances where it's the claimant's fault, that would be you, and realistically the reason why it would be your fault is because you waited too long to turn in your stubs. But then there's also situations where it's the agency's fault, where they had everything that they needed from you in a timely manner and they procrastinated to process your decision, resulting in a greater overpayment than maybe what you should have had. And that's where other opportunities lie to ask for waivers and things like that. So keep that in mind. Always, whenever possible, get a receipt. The other way to report your wages is over the phone. I would not recommend this, but if that was your only recourse, you could tell somebody over the phone, hey, I worked. This is what I'm alleging I made for these different pay periods. In turn, Social Security's they may or may not send you a letter saying, okay, please provide the pay stubs so that we can conduct a work review, and they might give you some forms too if they just open it up. If you don't get any letters or any forms in the mail, then that means that they probably just told you, all right, well, mail in your stubs and we'll take care of it, and nothing was really done after that. So you're kind of at the starting point, really, what you should be doing still. You can mail in your if you do mail them in, which I would, if you mail in your stubs and you use just regular USPS, you throw a stamp on there and you throw them in the mail, good luck. The USPS is absolutely terrible. I can tell you, working in multiple offices in multiple states, there are times where the post office, at least in the last office that I worked at, there were periods where like 3 or 4 weeks would go by before the post office would drop off the mail for Social Security, and it would be like a massive batch of mail where we would be going through mail for a couple days. And that's if your mail makes it to the Social Security office. So I can't stress it enough. Avoid using USPS as much as possible. If you have to go through them, pay for tracking. It's like $1.50, $2. Pay for the tracking. Get your tracking number, or your tracking number will be on the receipt that they give you. And then once you have that receipt, make sure that you articulate, write on it yourself if you need to, what months of pay stubs that you sent in. Be as detailed as you can be and itemize it. So again, if you got paid on a weekly basis and you mailed out 4 pay stubs for the previous month, you need to write on the back of that receipt pay period start, pay period end dates, and then your gross wages for each pay stub. Because if you continue to do that, then after a few months of mailing in your pay stubs with tracking information, you're not really going to know. You're just going to have a bunch of receipts showing that you mailed in pay stubs to the Social Security office. That's not really any concrete proof of what exactly you mailed, right? So let's say that if you just wrote the month or whatever, and you are missing a stub, it doesn't really detail that kind of information. So again, that's another reason why if you can turn them in person and get that receipt in your hand, you should do that. Even when you mail them in as well, they should still mail you back a receipt. I can tell you for certainty, again, because that is a time-consuming process, you won't always get a receipt back in the mail. So again, if you're there in person, you say, no, I'm not, I gave you my stubs, I'm supposed to get a receipt, I want that receipt right now. That is the best thing to do. And then you can also do it online. I've had an experience with a number of people who have had issues reporting wages online for one reason or the other, whether maybe it was their internet connection or they forgot their login information or the server was down or the server was going through maintenance or, XYZ. It is super convenient if you can do it and you can maintain that confirmation that it was done. Print that out whenever possible or email it to yourself. But again, that's kind of, my experience with that and what people have said is I would say neutral, right? I've heard good things, I've heard bad things. And then you could also fax your stubs. Faxing is another, I would say going in person and faxing your stubs are the two best ways, because if you do fax, only do fax when you can get an email confirmation, because when you get that email confirmation, it should also provide you an image of what you sent, the number you sent it to, and it will confirm that the fax went through or not. So that is great proof to have. And then switching over to SSI, if you receive SSI, your wages or any financial assistance that you get from anybody, whether it's community action, your family, your friends, if you are working, you should be reporting your pay stubs, but any sort of income or resources that you come into, you should be reporting as soon as possible to avoid any kind of overpayment. This would include, it's really anything. If you were to go to the corner store, buy a scratch-off ticket, and win $500 from that scratch-off ticket, you better report that $500 as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're going to be potentially overpaid in SSI benefits. The SSI department has a number of online resources that they can use to query your financial institutions, your credit score, maybe some tax information, things like that. So it's really in your best interest to report anything that might affect your SSI benefits and avoid an overpayment at all costs. And then finally, once you have your proof that you reported your wages timely and you do that, I would get a binder from the dollar store or somewhere where you can keep track of everything that you turned in and when you turned it in, because eventually you will have a review. And the more organized you are, the less stressful it's going to be, and the more confident you'll be that you won't be overpaid. And if Social Security tries to tell you you are overpaid, now you have an entire logbook to say, I gave you this stub on this date, I spoke to this person, and it's your fault that that this overpayment grew because you didn't suspend my benefits. You told me everything was good to go. So again, the more organized you are, the better. And then just know this. If you do turn in your stubs and you know you're over the limit and you know you should not be paid, do not spend that money, because no matter what, Social Security is going to put that pressure on you that you have to pay that money back. If you find yourself in a position where you did everything that you were supposed to, when you were supposed to do it, and you still ended up with an overpayment, reach out to me and I could possibly help you to get that overpayment either reduced or totally removed. I can ensure that everything was done correctly as it should have been. Not so much, my area of expertise does not lie with SSI, but more so with the Social Security side. So SSDI or any sort of retirement, survivors, or spouse benefits that you might be receiving. But I could still help people with SSI to say, okay, well, based off the dates and the policy and what you're supposed to do, I can help people with appeals. You always want to make sure that you're doing everything in a timely fashion. I cannot stress that enough. I would say the overwhelming majority of overpayments that Social Security deals with has to do with work, for one of the things that I just mentioned, and wages not being reported timely. There are instances, again, like I said, where overpayments are created because Social Security took their time in processing whatever review was going on. But at the end of the day, if you have an overpayment, that's going to be their argument. Is you received the money, you knew what your restrictions were because you knew that you had to, on some level, you knew that you had to report your wages. You decided to accept the money and keep it and possibly spend it. Well, you owe that money back now. That is very much going to be their position. I can't stress that enough. If you know you're going to be overpaid, and realistically, I've said this in other videos, Social Security at a minimum is going to be 1 month behind. So whatever benefits you're receiving, just know that when you report your wages, they're going to be 1 month behind, and once it catches up, you might owe that one payment back. So anticipate that, prepare for that financially, however we have to do that, but don't spend that money, because when you get hit with the notice that says you have to pay us back or make a payment arrangement, it's in your best interest to hang on to whatever check you got and just pay it back in full and not have that linger over your head, because that stress is damaging. It will weigh on you, especially if it's a big overpayment. I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, you learned something new, please give the video a like. It helps out the algorithm. It helps spread the channel out to other people who are looking for the same type of information. If you had a question about anything that I covered in the video, please leave a comment down below. And please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on your bell notifications so that you're always notified whenever I'm posting new content. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone.